Detective Sarah Mitchell had seen enough death notifications in her 15 years with the Oswego Police Department to know when something was fundamentally wrong. The way dispatch crackled through her radio that Tuesday afternoon carried an urgency she recognized immediately. A husband watching his home security camera in real time had just witnessed what appeared to be an attack on his wife. The address was Valentine Way, a quiet cul-de-sac in the Prescott Mills subdivision, where families walked their dogs and children played basketball in driveways. When Mitchell arrived at the Stewart residence at 1:17 p.m., the scene was already chaotic. Patrol units had blocked off the street. An ambulance sat silent in the driveway, its lights still rotating but the paramedic standing motionless near the garage entrance. That silence told her everything she needed to know before she even stepped out of her vehicle. Inside the attached garage, 41-year-old Ashley Stewart lay unresponsive on the concrete floor. Blood pooled beneath her body, spreading in dark rivulets toward the drain in the corner. The positioning suggested she had tried to flee, tried to make it to the door leading into the house. She had almost made it. Almost. The responding officers had already secured the scene and were maintaining a perimeter when Mitchell arrived. Officer Brandon Chen briefed her quickly. The victim's husband, Michael Stewart, had called 911 from his workplace approximately 27 minutes earlier. He had been checking his home security camera when he saw his wife pull into the garage. Seconds later, he watched a man sprint into the frame and follow her inside. Michael recognized the man immediately. It was Ashley's ex-husband, Ryan Dodd. Mitchell understood the implications instantly. This wasn't a random attack or a burglary gone wrong. This was personal, calculated, and the suspect had a 27-minute head start. She radioed for additional units and requested K-9 teams from Aurora. If Dodd was on foot, they needed to move fast. The garage told its own story. Ashley's purse had fallen near the driver's side door, its contents scattered across the floor. Her keys were still in her hand. The attack had been swift and brutal, giving her no time to defend herself or call for help. Multiple sharp force injuries, the medical examiner would later confirm. A knife, wielded with rage and purpose. But it was what they found on Ashley's phone that transformed this from a domestic homicide into something far more complex. The device had fallen during the struggle and landed screen up near the rear tire of her Honda Accord. When Mitchell carefully bagged it as evidence, the screen was still illuminated, showing the last thing Ashley had been looking at before she died. A text message conversation. The contact name simply read, J. The messages were intimate, affectionate, planning a future together. Ashley had been in a relationship with someone new, someone who made her happy, someone who had given her hope after the divorce from Ryan Dodd had finally been finalized 8 months earlier. The last message she had sent, time-stamped at 12:58 p.m., read, Almost home, can't wait to see you tonight. She never got the chance. As Mitchell processed the scene, her phone buzzed with an update from dispatch. Units had located a brown Ford Explorer driving southbound on Harvey Road. The driver matched the description provided by Michael Stewart. They were executing a traffic stop now. Mitchell's pulse quickened as she listened to the radio chatter. This was happening fast, perhaps too fast for a suspect who had just committed murder. Most killers either ran or tried to dispose of evidence. This one was just driving calmly through the neighborhood, as if nothing had happened. The officer conducting the stop reported back within minutes. The driver was compliant, showed no signs of aggression, and provided identification without hesitation. Ryan Dodd, age 44, address in Aurora, Illinois. No outstanding warrants, no attempt to flee. He simply sat in the driver's seat with his hands visible on the steering wheel and waited to be taken into custody. Mitchell authorized the arrest and requested that Dodd's vehicle be impounded for processing. She needed to see this man for herself, to understand what kind of person could commit such a violent act and then drive away as if he had just finished running errands. But before she left the scene, she made sure the forensic team photographed everything, documented every detail, collected every piece of potential evidence. Because something about this case already felt different. The calmness of the arrest, the brutality of the attack, the timing that seemed almost choreographed. And most troubling of all, the fact that Ryan Dodd had chosen to strike at precisely the moment when he would be captured on camera. It was almost as if he wanted to be seen, wanted someone to know exactly what he had done. Mitchell had worked enough homicides to trust her instincts, and her instincts were screaming that there was more to this story than a jealous ex-husband unable to accept rejection. There was a message being sent here, a statement being made. She just needed to figure out who it was intended for and why Ryan Dodd was willing to spend the rest of his life in prison to deliver it. Ryan Dodd sat in interview room 3 at the Oswego Police Department, with the posture of a man waiting for a delayed flight. His hands rested flat on the metal table, his breathing steady, his expression blank. Detective Sarah Mitchell studied him through the one-way glass before entering. Most suspects displayed some physical manifestation of stress, fidgeting, sweating, avoiding eye contact, excessive talking. Dodd showed none of these tells. He simply sat and waited. Mitchell entered the room at 3:45 p.m., accompanied by Detective James Kowalski from the Major Crimes Unit. They had already read Dodd his Miranda rights during transport. He had acknowledged understanding them, but declined to request an attorney. That decision alone raised red flags for Mitchell. Innocent people often asked for lawyers. So did guilty people who understood how the system worked. People who simply accepted their fate rarely did. "Mr. Dodd, I'm Detective Mitchell. This is Detective Kowalski. We need to talk about what happened today at the Stewart residence on Valentine Way." Mitchell kept her voice neutral, professional. She wanted to see how he would respond to a direct approach. Dodd looked up at her with eyes that seemed oddly calm. "I know why I'm here." "Tell us about your relationship with Ashley Stewart," Kowalski interjected, opening a folder and placing several photographs on the table. Wedding photos, family photos, pictures of Ashley with her 6 children. "We were married for 9 years, divorced 8 months ago. She got the kids, I got visitation every other weekend." Dodd's voice was flat, mechanical, as if reciting information from a form. "How did you feel about the divorce?" Mitchell asked. For the first time, something flickered across Dodd's face. Not anger exactly, but something darker. "How do you think I felt? She destroyed our family, told me she wasn't happy anymore, said she needed to find herself. 8 months later, she's already with someone new." "You're talking about her boyfriend," Mitchell stated, watching his reaction carefully. Dodd's jaw tightened. "I'm talking about the man who took everything from me, my wife, my home, my children's respect." "Did you go to Ashley's house today?" "Yes." The admission was so casual, so matter-of-fact, that it momentarily stunned both detectives. Most suspects denied, deflected, created elaborate alibis. Dodd simply confirmed. "What time did you arrive?" Kowalski leaned forward. "Around noon, maybe a little earlier. I parked near the clubhouse first. Needed to think, needed to figure out what I was going to say to her." "What were you going to say?" "That she needed to stop. Stop destroying our family. Stop letting this other man influence our children. Stop pretending she could just erase me and start over." Mitchell pulled out her phone and showed him a still image from a neighbor's security camera. A man in a dark hoodie crouched near bushes outside the Stewart home. "Is this you?" Dodd studied the image without emotion. "Yes. Why were you hiding in the bushes, Mr. Dodd?" "I was waiting. I needed to talk to her alone, without him there, without the kids there, just her and me the way it used to be." "You brought a knife," Mitchell stated, not as a question. Dodd's hands remained perfectly still on the table. "I always carry a knife, construction work. You never know when you need to cut rope or open packages." "This wasn't about rope or packages, though, was it?" Kowalski's voice hardened. "You waited for Ashley to come home. You watched her pull into the garage, and then you attacked her." "I wanted to talk to her." Dodd's voice rose slightly, the first crack in his composure. "I just wanted to make her understand, but she wouldn't listen. She never listened. She just kept talking about him, about how happy she was, about how the kids loved him, about how she finally felt alive again." The room fell silent. Mitchell exchanged a glance with Kowalski. This was a confession. delivered with an almost clinical detachment. "What happened in that garage, Ryan?" Mitchell asked softly. Dodd looked down at his hands. "I showed her what happens when you destroy a family, when you replace a father, when you act like 9 years meant nothing. You stabbed her, multiple times. I made sure she understood the pain she caused." Mitchell felt her stomach turn, but she kept her expression neutral. "And then what did you do?" "I recorded it." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Kowalski straightened in his chair. Mitchell felt her pulse accelerate. "You recorded the attack?" she asked carefully. "Not the attack. After. I wanted him to see what he caused. Wanted him to know that his happiness came at this price." Dodd looked up, and for the first time, Mitchell saw something resembling emotion in his eyes. Satisfaction. "I sent it to him, before I left. Made sure he would get the message." Mitchell's mind raced. The boyfriend, the mysterious Jay in Ashley's phone. Dodd had filmed Ashley's dying moments and sent them to her lover. This wasn't just murder. This was psychological torture, designed to haunt someone forever. "You sent a video of Ashley dying to her boyfriend," Mitchell confirmed, needing to hear him say it again for the recording. "I sent him the truth, that you can't just take another man's family and expect no consequences, that every moment of happiness he stole from me comes with a price." "What's his name, Ryan? Who did you send the video to?" Dodd smiled, a cold, bitter expression that transformed his face into something cruel. "Find out yourself. It should be easy enough. Check Ashley's phone, check her messages. Check the man who's been playing father to my children." Mitchell stood abruptly. Interview terminated at 4:18 p.m. She motioned for Kowalski to follow her out. In the hallway, she immediately called the forensic team processing Ashley's phone. "I need the identity of the contact listed as Jay in Ashley Stewart's messages. And check Ryan Dodd's phone. He claims he sent a video to Ashley's boyfriend showing her after the attack. I need that video. And I need to know who received it." Kowalski leaned against the wall, running a hand through his hair. "This guy's a psychopath. He's not even trying to deny it." "Because he got what he wanted," Mitchell replied grimly. "He didn't kill Ashley to avoid consequences. He killed her to send a message. The question is, who's on the receiving end? And what are they going to do when they see that video?" Jordan Ellis was in the middle of a sales presentation when his phone vibrated in his pocket. He ignored it initially, focusing on the client seated across from him at the downtown Chicago office building. The second vibration came 30 seconds later, then a third. Jordan excused himself politely and stepped into the hallway, pulling out his phone with mild irritation. The screen showed 3 messages from an unknown number. No preview text, just file attachments, video files. Jordan's first instinct was to delete them as spam, but something made him hesitate. The timestamp on the first message was 1:19 p.m., around the same time Ashley should have been getting home. He opened the first video. The scream that tore from Jordan's throat brought security running. He dropped the phone as if it had burned him, collapsing against the wall as his legs gave out. The security guard picked up the device, saw what was on the screen, and immediately called 911. By 4:30 p.m., Detective Mitchell was standing in that same hallway, watching as a shell-shocked Jordan Ellis gave his statement to Chicago PD. His hands trembled violently. His face had gone pale, a sheen of sweat covering his forehead. Every few minutes he would lean over as if about to vomit, though nothing came up. Mitchell had watched the video herself. 3 minutes and 42 seconds of calculated cruelty. It showed Ashley lying on the garage floor, still alive but mortally wounded. The camera focused on her face as she struggled to breathe, blood spreading across her shirt. And then Ryan Dodd's voice, calm and deliberate. "This is what happens when you replace me. This is the price of your happiness. Look at her. Really look at her. This is on you." The video ended with Ashley's eyes going vacant. "Mr. Ellis, I know this is extremely difficult," Mitchell began gently, "but I need to understand your relationship with Ashley Stewart." Jordan looked up at her with eyes full of anguish. "We met 6 months ago at a charity event. She was volunteering. I was there representing my company. We started talking, and I don't know, there was just this connection. She told me she was divorced, that she had 6 kids, and normally that would have scared me off because I'm only 32, and I've never been married. But Ashley was different. She was kind and funny, and so full of life, despite everything she'd been through. What had she been through? Mitchell asked, taking notes. Her marriage to Ryan was toxic. He was controlling, jealous, always accusing her of things she never did. When she finally filed for divorce, he made it as difficult as possible. Fought her on custody, on the house, on every single detail. Even after it was finalized, he wouldn't leave her alone. He would show up at the kids' school, drive by her house, send her long messages about how she was destroying the family. Did she report this behavior? Jordan shook his head. She was scared it would affect the custody arrangement. Ryan was smart about it, never overtly threatening, just persistent enough to make her uncomfortable. She thought if she ignored him, he would eventually move on. When was the last time you saw Ashley? Last night. I stayed over after the kids went to bed. Left early this morning before they woke up. We were being careful, trying to do things right. She didn't want to introduce me to the children officially until we were sure this was serious. And it was. I was going to propose next month. His voice broke. I had the ring already. I was just waiting for the right moment. Mitchell felt a pang of sympathy but pushed forward. Did Ryan know about you? Not my name, but he knew she was seeing someone. About 2 weeks ago, he confronted her in the parking lot of the grocery store. Told her he knew she had a boyfriend and that she was making a mistake. Ashley called me right after, really shaken up. That's when we decided to be extra cautious. Did she tell you anything else about that confrontation? Jordan hesitated, then nodded. Ryan told her that if he couldn't have her, no one could. At the time, we thought it was just bitter talk from an angry ex. We never thought he would, actually. He couldn't finish the sentence. Mitchell's phone buzzed. A text from the forensic team. They had pulled the complete message history from Ashley's phone. The timeline was damning. Ryan Dodd had been monitoring Ashley's social media, tracking her location through mutual friends, gathering information about her new relationship for weeks. On his phone, they found dozens of unsent text messages, drafts of emails he never sent, and most disturbing of all, a folder containing surveillance photos of Ashley and Jordan together. Mr. Ellis, I need you to think carefully. Did you ever notice anyone following you and Ashley? Any strange cars parked near her house? Anything that seemed off? Jordan wiped his eyes, thinking. There was one time, maybe 3 weeks ago. We were having dinner at a restaurant in Naperville. Ashley thought she saw Ryan's car in the parking lot, but when we went out to check, it was gone. We convinced ourselves she was being paranoid. She wasn't paranoid, Mitchell said quietly. He was hunting her, watching her routine, learning her schedule, waiting for the right moment. The full picture was emerging now. Ryan Dodd hadn't simply snapped in a moment of rage. This was premeditated, planned down to the smallest detail. He had chosen the moment when Ashley would be alone, when the children were still at school, when Michael would be at work. He had positioned himself to intercept her at the most vulnerable point, pulling into her own garage, where she felt safe. And the video. That was the final piece of his revenge. Not just to kill Ashley, but to ensure that Jordan Ellis would be haunted by those images for the rest of his life. To make him carry the guilt, the horror, the knowledge that loving Ashley had cost her everything. Detective. Am I in danger? Jordan asked suddenly. If he went this far, if he blamed me for destroying his family, could he come after me too? It was a legitimate question. Mitchell had seen cases where rage didn't stop with a single victim. We have Ryan Dodd in custody. He's not going anywhere. But I'm going to recommend protection for you, at least for the next few days while we process all the evidence. Jordan nodded numbly. I can't stop seeing her face. In that video, the way she looked at the camera, it's like she knew I would see it, like she was trying to tell me something. Mitchell didn't respond. She had seen that look too. It wasn't a message for Jordan. It was the look of a woman who knew she was dying, who knew she would never see her children grow up, never feel sunlight on her face again. It was the look of someone whose last conscious thought was probably about the 6 kids who would come home from school to find their mother gone forever. Assistant District Attorney Rebecca Hoffman arrived at the Oswego Police Department at 6 p.m. with 2 litigation assistants and enough coffee to fuel an all-night session. She had prosecuted dozens of homicides in her 12-year career, but this case demanded immediate attention. The brutality, the premeditation, the psychological terrorism of sending that video, this was a case that would generate headlines, and she needed the charges to be airtight. Detective Mitchell briefed her in the conference room, laying out evidence folders across the table like puzzle pieces. We have him cold on first-degree murder, multiple witnesses, video evidence, his own confession. But there's more here. The stalking charge is going to be crucial to establishing premeditation and the depraved state of mind. Hoffman opened the first folder. Inside were printouts of Ryan Dodd's digital footprint over the past 8 weeks. His phone's GPS data showed 17 separate trips to the Prescott Mill neighborhood during times when Ashley would have been home. He had driven past her house, parked at the clubhouse with a clear sightline to her driveway, and on 3 occasions remained parked for over an hour. He was establishing her patterns, Mitchell explained. Learning when she left for work, when she returned, when the kids had school, when Michael was home. This wasn't impulse, this was reconnaissance. The second folder contained screenshots from Ashley's social media accounts. Someone had been systematically screenshotting every post, every photo, every comment. That someone was Ryan. His laptop, seized during the arrest, contained a hidden folder with over 300 images of Ashley downloaded from Facebook and Instagram. Some were recent photos with Jordan Ellis, his face circled in red digital ink. Others were older family photos with faces scratched out digitally, leaving only Ashley visible. He was erasing everyone else from her life, at least in his mind, Hoffman observed. Classic obsessive behavior. But the most damning evidence came from Ryan's text message history. While he had been careful not to send overtly threatening messages to Ashley directly, he had been far less cautious with others. Messages to his brother revealed his deteriorating mental state. She thinks she can just replace me. Thinks some corporate pretty boy can be a father to my kids. I'll show her what replacement feels like. Another message sent just 5 days before the murder. Sometimes the only way to make someone understand is to take away what they value most. His brother had responded, "Don't do anything stupid, Ryan. Think about your kids." Ryan's reply, "I am thinking about them. They need to see that actions have consequences." Hoffman set down the printout, her expression grim. Did the brother report these messages? No. He claims he thought Ryan was just venting, that he never believed his brother would actually follow through. Mitchell shook her head in disgust. He's devastated now, obviously, but it's too late. The forensic analysis of Ryan's phone revealed something even more chilling. He had researched the video file format that would be most difficult to delete remotely. He had looked up how long it takes for someone to die from stab wounds to specific organs. He had studied Illinois stalking laws, apparently trying to understand what behaviors would and wouldn't trigger police intervention. This was a man who had spent weeks planning every detail. Hoffman turned to the third folder, which contained statements from Ashley's friends and co-workers. A pattern emerged quickly. Multiple people reported that Ashley had mentioned feeling watched. 3 weeks before her death, she told her best friend Robin Ross that she thought she saw Ryan's car following her home from the gym. 2 weeks before, a neighbor reported seeing a man matching Ryan's description standing at the end of Ashley's driveway late at night, just standing there, looking at the house. Ashley had documented some of these incidents herself. In her phone's notes app, investigators found a running log titled Ryan Sightings. January 7th. Saw his car at Target. He was parked 3 rows away, just sitting there. January 15th. Kid said dad asked weird questions about who I'm dating. Told them to tell him it's none of his business. January 22nd. Pretty sure he drove past the house twice this morning. same brown Explorer. The final entry was dated January 26th, one day before her murder. He knows about Jordan. Left a note on my windshield at work. Just said, I know. Vinny didn't sign it, but I recognize his handwriting. I'm scared. Why didn't she go to the police? One of Hoffman's assistants asked. Because she knew the system wouldn't protect her until he actually did something, Mitchell replied bitterly. A note that says I know isn't a threat. Driving past someone's house on a public street isn't illegal. She would have filed a report, maybe gotten a restraining order if she was lucky. And then what? A piece of paper wouldn't have stopped him. Hoffman knew Mitchell was right. The legal system was designed to punish crimes after they happened, not prevent them before. Ashley had been caught in that terrible gap between fear and action, and it had cost her everything. The conference room door opened and Detective Kowalski entered with another folder. You need to see this. We pulled the video footage from the clubhouse security cameras. He queued up the footage on the conference room television. The timestamp read 11:47 a.m., January 27th. Ryan Dodd's brown Explorer pulled into the clubhouse parking lot and parked in a spot with a direct view of Valentine Way, 3 streets over. For the next hour and 6 minutes, the car remained stationary. At 12:53 p.m., the driver's door opened. Ryan stepped out, pulled a dark hoodie over his head, and began walking in the direction of Ashley's house. He sat there for over an hour just waiting, Kowalski said. The earlier call about someone urinating near the clubhouse? That was probably him too, but he moved before the officer arrived. Hoffman leaned forward, studying Ryan's body language on the screen. His movements were deliberate, purposeful. This was not a man in the grip of uncontrollable rage. This was a man executing a plan. What about the weapon? She asked. Have we recovered the knife? Not yet, Mitchell admitted. We've searched his vehicle, his apartment, the route between the crime scene and where he was apprehended. Requested a warrant for the landfill, but finding it there would be nearly impossible. We're canvassing the neighborhood, checking every trash can, every storm drain, every possible disposal point. We don't need it, Hoffman decided. We have his confession. We have the video evidence. We have the premeditation documented in his own digital records. The medical examiner can testify about the wounds being consistent with a knife attack. We can prove method and intent without the actual weapon. She began organizing the folders, her mind already constructing the narrative she would present to a grand jury. I'm charging him with first-degree murder with special circumstances of lying in wait and stalking. Home invasion because he entered the garage without permission with intent to commit a felony. Armed violence, residential burglary, and aggravated stalking. I want every possible charge on the table. What about the video he sent to Jordan Ellis? Mitchell asked. Is there a charge for that? Hoffman considered. Potentially harassment or intimidation of a witness, though Jordan isn't technically a witness to the murder itself. I'll research Illinois statutes on distribution of violent imagery. There might be something there. As the team continued working through the evidence, Mitchell's phone rang. It was the victim advocate assigned to Ashley's family. Michael Stewart wanted to speak with the detective. He had information he thought might be relevant. Mitchell excused herself and returned the call. Michael's voice was strained, exhausted. Detective, I've been going through Ashley's things, trying to find documents for the funeral arrangements. I found something hidden in her closet. A box of letters. Letters from Ryan. Yes, dozens of them. Some are from before the divorce, but most are from after. They're disturbing, obsessive. He talks about their life together like the divorce never happened, like she's still his wife and this is just a temporary separation. Mitchell drove to the Stewart home that evening as dusk settled over Oswego. The house on Valentine Way was dark, except for a single light in the living room window. Yellow crime scene tape still cordoned off the garage, fluttering in the cold January wind. She parked on the street and approached the front door, noting the small memorial that had already begun forming on the lawn. Flowers, candles, stuffed animals left by neighbors who didn't know what else to do with their grief. Michael Stewart opened the door before she could knock. He looked like he had aged 10 years in a single day. His eyes were red-rimmed, his shirt wrinkled, his hair uncombed. Behind him, Mitchell could hear the muted sounds of children crying. "My sister took the kids upstairs," Michael explained quietly, leading her to the dining room. "They keep asking when Mom is coming home. The older ones understand, but the little ones." His voice cracked. "How do you explain to a 5-year-old that Mommy isn't coming back?" On the dining room table sat a cardboard box, the kind used for storing old tax returns or photographs. Michael gestured to it. "I found this on the top shelf of her closet, behind some winter coats. I don't think she wanted the kids to find it." Mitchell pulled on latex gloves and opened the box. Inside were at least 50 letters, most still in their envelopes, all addressed to Ashley in Ryan's handwriting. The postmarks ranged from 2 years ago to as recently as 3 weeks before the murder. She carefully removed the top letter and unfolded it. The paper was filled with Ryan's neat, cramped handwriting. No date, no greeting, just words pouring onto the page. "You'll understand eventually why I had to do this, why I couldn't let you go. We made vows, Ashley. Till death do us part. You don't get to decide when those vows end. Only death decides, only I decide." Mitchell felt her skin crawl. "Did Ashley ever show these to you?" Michael shook his head. "She kept a lot of Ryan's behavior from me. I think she was trying to protect me from worrying. Or maybe she was embarrassed that she ever married someone like that. I knew he was difficult during the divorce, but I didn't realize how bad it had gotten." Mitchell pulled out another letter, this one dated 3 months earlier. "I drove past the house today and saw a man's car in the driveway. Is he sleeping in our bed, Ashley? Is he eating at our table, playing father to our children? You've given away everything that was mine, but I'll take it all back. One way or another, I'll take it back." Letter after letter revealed a man spiraling into delusion. He wrote about their marriage as if it were still ongoing. He referred to the children as exclusively his. He described elaborate fantasies of reconciliation, where Ashley would realize her mistake and beg him to return. And threaded through it all was a growing anger, a sense of ownership that twisted love into something poisonous. "There's more," Michael said quietly, pulling a manila envelope from the bottom of the box. "She wrote something too. I think she was documenting everything in case something happened." Inside the envelope was a typed document, 12 pages long, detailing Ashley's relationship with Ryan from the beginning. Mitchell read it carefully, and a portrait emerged of a marriage that had started with promise and deteriorated into control and isolation. Ashley described how Ryan had been charming during their courtship, attentive and devoted. But after the wedding, he began making small demands: who she could spend time with, what she could wear, how she spent money. Each concession led to another until Ashley realized she had become a prisoner in her own home. "He never hit me," she had written. "People always ask that as if physical violence is the only kind that matters. But he controlled everything else. He monitored my phone. He accused me of cheating constantly. He made me quit my job because he said the male co-workers looked at me inappropriately. By the time I had the courage to leave, I had no friends left, no career, nothing but 6 children who deserved better than watching their mother disappear." The document detailed Ashley's escape, how she had secretly consulted a divorce attorney, how she had opened a bank account Ryan didn't know about, how she had confided in her sister and planned her exit for months before finally filing the papers. And then it described what came after. Ryan's refusal to accept the divorce, his insistence that they could work things out, his escalating presence in her life even after the court order. Ashley had documented everything. The unexplained gifts left on her porch, the flowers delivered to her workplace, the times she caught him watching her from his car. "I'm writing this," the document concluded, "because I'm afraid. Not afraid that Ryan will hurt me in a moment of rage. He's too controlled for that. I'm afraid he's planning something, that he's waiting for the right moment. And if something happens to me, I want everyone to know it wasn't random. It wasn't bad luck. It was Ryan, and it was always going to be Ryan." Mitchell closed the folder carefully. Ashley had known. On some level, she had understood the danger she was in, and she had tried to create a record, a trail of evidence that would ensure her death wouldn't be dismissed as a domestic dispute gone wrong. "Detective, why didn't the system protect her?" Michael asked, his voice breaking. "She tried to do everything right. She filed for divorce legally. She documented his behavior. She kept records. What more could she have done?" It was a question Mitchell had heard too many times in her career, and she still didn't have a good answer. The legal system reacts to crimes. It doesn't prevent them. Unless Ryan made an explicit threat or physically harmed her, there was no basis for an arrest. A restraining order might have helped, but those are just paper. They don't stop someone determined to act. So she died because he was smart enough not to explicitly threaten her until it was too late. Yes. Michael slumped in his chair, the fight draining out of him. The kids keep asking if they'll still see their dad. They don't understand that their dad is the reason their mom is gone. How do I explain that to them? How do I help them process that the person who was supposed to protect them is the person who destroyed their family? Mitchell had no answer for that either. The collateral damage of murder extended far beyond the victim. Ashley's 6 children would grow up with this trauma, this knowledge that love could turn lethal, that family could become the source of ultimate betrayal. Upstairs, a child began crying loudly, calling for their mother. Michael flinched at the sound but didn't move. "That's Emma. She's 7. She keeps having nightmares that the bad man is coming back. I told her the bad man is in jail, but she doesn't understand that the bad man is her father." Mitchell gathered the letters carefully, placing them back in the box as evidence. These would be crucial for the stalking charges, for establishing the pattern of obsessive behavior that culminated in murder. But beyond their evidentiary value, they were a record of Ashley's fear, her courage, her desperate attempt to escape a man who refused to let her go. As Mitchell prepared to leave, Michael walked her to the door. "Will this go to trial? Will we have to testify? Will the kids have to know all the details?" Ryan's already confessed. His attorney might advise him to plead guilty to avoid the death penalty. But if it goes to trial, yes, there will be testimony. The children won't have to testify, but the details will be public record. "He sent that video to Jordan," Michael said suddenly, "the one showing Ashley dying. Why would he do that? What kind of person films something like that?" Someone who wanted to inflict maximum pain on everyone Ashley loved. The murder wasn't enough for him. He needed to make sure everyone suffered. 3 weeks after Ashley Stewart's murder, Ryan Dodd appeared before Judge Patricia Hernandez for his arraignment. The courtroom was packed with media, Ashley's family, and members of the community who had followed the case with horrified fascination. Detective Mitchell sat in the front row, watching as the man she had interviewed was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles. His attorney, a public defender named Marcus Webb, had already informed the prosecutor's office that his client intended to plead guilty to all charges. There would be no trial, no drawn-out legal battle, no forcing Ashley's family to relive the horror in open court. Ryan Dodd had decided to accept responsibility for what he had done. When Judge Hernandez asked how he pleaded, Ryan stood and spoke clearly. "Guilty, Your Honor, to all charges." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Michael Stewart closed his eyes, tears streaming down his face. Ashley's sister clutched his hand. In the back row, Jordan Ellis sat alone, his face expressionless, still haunted by images he could never unsee. Ada Rebecca Hoffman addressed the court, her voice steady and firm. "Your Honor, the people request the maximum sentence allowed under Illinois law. Ryan Dodd didn't just commit murder. He stalked his victim for months, planned every detail of her death, and then weaponized that death to inflict psychological torture on another victim. This was premeditated, calculated evil." Judge Hernandez reviewed the case file before her. Page after page of evidence documenting Ryan's descent into obsession. The letters, the surveillance, the GPS tracking, the researched methods of killing. When she finally looked up, her expression was grave. "Mr. Dodd, this court has reviewed the evidence in your case. and I have rarely encountered such a clear pattern of predatory stalking behavior, culminating in brutal violence. You destroyed a family. You orphaned 6 children. You traumatized countless individuals who will carry the scars of your actions for the rest of their lives." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the courtroom. "I hereby sentence you to natural life in prison, without the possibility of parole for the first-degree murder of Ashley Stewart. Additionally, you will serve consecutive sentences totaling 60 years for the remaining charges. You will die in prison, Mr. Dodd. You will never again have the opportunity to harm another person." Ryan showed no emotion as the sentence was handed down. He simply nodded, as if this outcome had been expected, perhaps even desired. As he was led away, he glanced once at the gallery where Michael Stewart sat. Mitchell couldn't read his expression. Was it remorse, satisfaction, or simply emptiness? After the hearing, Mitchell found Jordan Ellis standing outside the courthouse, staring at nothing. "How are you holding up?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "I can't sleep," Jordan admitted. "Every time I close my eyes, I see her face. I hear his voice saying it's my fault. The therapist says it will get easier with time, but I don't see how. I loved her, detective. I wanted to marry her, to be a father to those kids. And now they'll grow up associating me with their mother's death. You didn't kill Ashley. Ryan did. Don't let him take that from you, too. I know that logically, but grief isn't logical." Jordan turned to face her. "Did the sentence bring you any satisfaction? Does it feel like justice?" Mitchell considered the question carefully. Justice would be Ashley alive, raising her children, living the life she fought so hard to build. What we got today was accountability. It's not the same thing, but it's what the system can offer. Jordan nodded slowly. "Michael asked me not to attend Ashley's funeral. He thought it would be too confusing for the kids, too painful. I understood, but it meant I never got to say goodbye properly. I never got closure." "Closure is overrated," Mitchell said gently. "What you need is time and help processing the trauma. Have you continued with the therapist?" 3 times a week. It helps, marginally." He pulled out his phone, hesitated, then showed Mitchell his wallpaper. It was a photo of Ashley laughing, her eyes bright with life. "This is how I'm trying to remember her. Not the video, not his version of her story. The woman I loved." Over the following months, Mitchell watched as Ashley's case rippled through the community. A local domestic violence organization named a scholarship fund after her. Illinois legislators proposed a bill expanding the criteria for restraining orders in stalking cases, calling it Ashley's Law. Her story became a cautionary tale, a rallying cry, a reminder that the signs of danger are often visible long before tragedy strikes. Michael Stewart enrolled the children in therapy and slowly began rebuilding their lives. He sold the house on Valentine Way, too many memories, too much trauma embedded in those walls, and moved to a different district where the kids could start fresh. Ashley's sister helped with childcare, creating a support system the children desperately needed. As for Detective Mitchell, she kept a copy of Ashley's written account in her desk drawer. She read it sometimes when she felt overwhelmed by the cases that ended badly, the victims who slipped through the cracks, the perpetrators who exploited every loophole in a system designed to protect rights rather than prevent harm. Ashley Stewart had tried to do everything right. She had documented abuse, filed for divorce, created evidence trails, and still ended up dead on her garage floor while her killer calmly filmed her final moments. The system had failed her not through malice, but through limitation. The fundamental truth that laws punish actions already taken rather than prevent actions contemplated. But Ashley's story didn't end with her death. It lived on in the advocacy work inspired by her case, in the children who would grow up knowing their mother fought for a better life, in the awareness raised about the lethality of obsessive stalking behavior. Her legacy wasn't the video Ryan sent or the brutality of her final moments. It was the courage she showed in leaving, the strength she demonstrated in rebuilding, and the love she gave her children during the time she had. Ryan Dodd would spend the rest of his life in a cell, his name synonymous with domestic terrorism and calculated cruelty. Ashley Stewart would be remembered as a mother, a survivor, a woman who refused to accept abuse as her destiny even though that refusal cost her everything. In the end, justice wasn't about revenge or closure. It was about ensuring that Ashley's death meant something, that the 6 children she left behind would inherit a world slightly more aware, slightly more protective, slightly more willing to intervene before obsession turned lethal.